When Leah rescues a wounded dog from a rain-soaked alley, she doesn't expect to fall for his mysterious owner, but as secrets unravel, can love survive between a billionaire and a woman with nothing but heart? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The rain pounded against the windows of Leah Monroe's small apartment in the old part of town. At 34, she had grown accustomed to the sounds of her neighborhood, children playing too late, occasional arguments from next door, and the constant drip from the kitchen faucet she couldn't afford to fix. Tonight, after a double shift at the diner and 3 hours at her second job at the convenience store, all she wanted was to sink into her worn couch with a cup of tea. Another day done, she sighed, kicking off her shoes and massaging her aching feet. Leah's apartment wasn't much, peeling paint on the walls, a couch she'd found at a yard sale and mismatched dishes, but it was hers. She'd hung curtains she'd sewn herself and placed small potted plants on every windowsill. Despite everything, she made room for beauty. The sound of whimpering from the alley below her window caught her attention, pulling her sweater tighter. Around her shoulders, she peered outside into the darkness. The whimpering came again, more desperate this time. Without hesitation, Leah grabbed her umbrella and hurried down the 3 flights of stairs to the back alley. The rain soaked through her jeans as she followed the sound to a pile of cardboard boxes behind the dumpster. That's when she saw him, a medium-sized dog with matted golden fur, shivering and holding up his right front paw. His eyes, large and brown, looked up at her with a mixture of fear and hope. "Hey there," Leah said softly, crouching down. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The dog backed away, limping badly. "You're hurt, aren't you? And you're soaked to the bone." Leah stayed still, letting the dog decide. "I've got a warm place upstairs, food, a dry towel." After what seemed like forever, the dog inched closer, sniffing her outstretched hand. "That's it," she encouraged. "Good boy." With gentle movements, Leah slipped off her cardigan and wrapped it around the trembling animal. He weighed more than she expected as she carried him up the stairs to her apartment. Once inside, she placed him on a folded blanket in the bathroom and began to dry him with a towel. His fur was beautiful under all the dirt, a rich golden color. As she worked, she noticed the scars on his side and the raw wound on his paw. "Someone loved you once," she murmured, noticing how the dog didn't snap or growl even when she touched his injured leg. "You're too gentle not to have known love." After giving him water and some leftover chicken from her dinner, Leah made a makeshift bed on the couch. "You can stay here tonight," she told him, stroking his head. "Tomorrow we'll figure things out." But one night turned into 3, and 3 turned into a week. She named him Milo after her grandfather's dog from her childhood. Each day, his limp improved a little. Each night he slept closer to her bed. "You know, Milo," Leah said one evening while she cooked dinner, "I wasn't planning on a roommate, but you're not so bad. Don't snore, don't leave dishes in the sink." Milo thumped his tail against the floor, watching her with devoted eyes. On her day off, Leah counted her tips from the week and made a decision. "Come on, boy, we need to get that leg looked at properly." The local clinic was crowded, but Dr. Chen squeezed them in between appointments. "No collar, no tags," Dr. Chen observed, examining Milo carefully. "He might be microchipped, though. Want me to check?" Leah hesitated. Of course she should check. If Milo belonged to someone, they must be worried sick. But the thought of giving him up made her heart ache. In just 3 weeks, he'd become her companion, greeting her at the door when she came home tired from work, resting his head on her lap while she read. "Yes," she finally said, "please check." Dr. Chen ran the scanner over Milo's neck and shoulders. Nothing coming up. Could be a damaged chip or no chip at all." Relief washed over Leah, followed immediately by guilt. "His leg? Sprained. Not broken. He's healing well. You've done a good job with him." Leah paid the 87 bill, money she'd been saving for new winter boots, and took Milo home, stopping to buy him a proper collar and leash with the last of her cash. What Leah didn't know was that 20 miles away, in a sleek office in the city's financial district, an alert had just pinged on a computer screen. The information automatically transferred to a private server, where it was flagged and forwarded to a man who hadn't slept properly in weeks. Rowan Hartwell stared at the notification on his phone, his hand trembling slightly. Milo had been found. After 3 weeks of private searches, sleepless nights, and a grief he couldn't share with anyone, his dog, his only true companion, was alive. At 40, Rowan had inherited the Hartwell real estate empire reluctantly. He'd grown up with wealth, but found little comfort in it after losing his parents in a boating accident when he was 30. His position as CEO made him a target for opportunists and fortune hunters, which had turned him increasingly private and guarded. Only Milo had seen the real Rowan, the man who preferred reading by the fire to attending galas, who sometimes skipped meetings to walk on the beach, who spoke more freely to his dog than to any human. The day Milo disappeared from his private estate broke something in Rowan. The dog had been with him for 7 years, ever since he'd found him at a shelter after his parents' funeral. He'd searched everywhere, offered rewards to his staff, but avoided public announcements that might draw unwanted attention. Now, according to the scan information, Milo was at a small veterinary clinic in the older part of town. Rowan called. "His head of security, James. I need an address from this chip scan," Rowan said, his voice tight with emotion. "And I'll go alone." "Mr. Hartwell, I strongly advise—" "Alone, James. This isn't business, it's personal." An hour later, Rowan parked his ordinary-looking sedan in front of a run-down apartment building. He'd chosen to wear jeans and a simple button-down shirt, nothing that would reveal his wealth or status. The clinic records had led him to an El Monroe in apartment 3B. As he climbed the stairs with a heavy heart, Rowan prepared himself. Whoever had Milo might demand money for his return. They might have mistreated him. They might be the reason he went missing in the first place. He knocked on the door of 3B, hearing a dog bark excitedly on the other side. Milo's bark. His heart raced. The door opened to reveal a woman with warm brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wasn't what he expected. There was nothing calculated in her expression, just curiosity and a touch of wariness. "Can I help you?" she asked. Before Rowan could answer, Milo pushed past her legs and leapt toward him, whining and wiggling with joy. The emotion that surged through Rowan was overwhelming. He knelt down, burying his face in Milo's fur, unable to speak for a moment. "Wenena." He looked up. He saw the woman watching them with a complicated expression, happiness mixed with what looked like heartbreak. She knelt beside Milo and whispered something in his ear before scratching behind it gently. "I knew he had someone out there," she said quietly. "I just didn't think I'd miss him this much." Her words caught Rowan off guard. There was no demand for reward, no explanation of how she'd found his dog, just honest emotion. "His name is Milo," she continued. "At least, that's what I've been calling him. I found him in the alley behind this building 3 weeks ago. He was hurt and scared." Rowan stood up, studying her more carefully. Her apartment was small but tidy, with a few simple touches that made it feel like a home. A threadbare blanket was folded on the couch, clearly Milo's new bed. Dog food and a water bowl sat in the corner of the kitchen. She'd cared for him. "May I come in?" Rowan asked, surprising himself. Leah hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside. "Of course, would you like some tea?" Rowan sat at her small kitchen table while she put on the kettle. Milo settled between them, seemingly unwilling to choose one over the other. "I'm Leah Monroe," she said, placing a chipped mug of tea in front. "Of him?" "Rowan," he replied, deliberately leaving off his last name. "Thank you for taking care of him." "He's special," Leah said simply. "The night I found him, it was pouring rain. He was limping and hiding behind the dumpster. I couldn't just leave him there." As she talked about finding Milo, the slow healing process and their developing bond, Rowan found himself captivated, not just by her kindness to his dog, but by her complete lack of pretense. She spoke about spending her last savings on Milo's vet visit without self-pity, and described how he growled at vacuum cleaners with genuine amusement. "He sleeps next to my bed now," she said, smiling at the dog. "Sometimes I think he knows when I've had a hard day. He'll put his head on my lap like he's saying, 'I get it.'" Rowan felt something shift inside him. This woman hadn't just kept Milo alive, she'd given him a home, a real one, filled with the kind of genuine care that couldn't be bought. "How did you lose him?" Leah asked gently. Rowan ran a hand through his hair. "He was at my house. The gate was left open by mistake. I've been searching for him ever since." "You must have been worried sick." "I was," Rowan admitted. "He's been with me through some difficult times." An uncomfortable silence fell between them as they both realized what came next. Rowan would take Milo home. Leah would be alone again. "I should get his things," Leah said, standing up suddenly. She gathered Milo's new collar, leash, a chew toy, and the blanket from the couch. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed them on the table. "He likes to be wrapped in this blanket when it thunders, and he prefers his food slightly warm." Rowan watched her, struck by the care in every word, every gesture. When was the last time anyone had looked after something of his with such genuine tenderness? "Keep the blanket," he said suddenly, "and the toy." Leah looked confused. "But it's because I'd like to bring him back to visit," Rowan continued, the words forming as he spoke them. "If that's okay with you." Her eyes widened. "Visit? Yes. You saved him, cared for him. That matters to me." He paused, gathering his courage. "Maybe I could come by tomorrow evening. Bring dinner as a thank you." The smile that bloomed on Leah's face was worth every moment of uncertainty. "I'd like that," she said simply. As Rowan stood to leave, Milo looked between them, wagging his tail. For the first time in years, Rowan felt a glimmer of something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. "Until tomorrow, then," he said, taking Milo's leash. Leah knelt to hug Milo one more time. "Be good," she whispered, "and come back soon." When the door closed behind them, Rowan looked down at his dog, who gazed back up with knowing eyes. "I think we both found something we didn't know we were looking for," he said quietly. True to his word, Rowan returned the next evening. Leah had just finished her shift at the diner and barely had time to change out of her uniform when she heard the knock at her door. When she opened it, there stood Rowan with Milo and 2 large bags of takeout from Giovanni's, the Italian restaurant, downtown that she'd only walked past but never entered. "You came back," she said, unable to hide her surprise. "I promised I would," Rowan replied simply. Milo pushed past them both, running straight to his blanket still folded on the couch as if he'd never left. He circled 3 times before settling down with a contented sigh. "He missed you," Rowan said, placing the food on her small kitchen table. "Kept looking at the door all day." Leah smiled, kneeling to scratch Milo behind the ears. "I missed him, too." As they unpacked containers of pasta, garlic bread, and salad, Leah felt oddly nervous. In the light of day, she'd had time to wonder about this man. He was clearly well off. His watch alone probably cost more than her rent, but there was nothing showy about him. His jeans and simple sweater could have belonged to anyone. "So," she said, trying to make conversation as they sat down to eat, "what do you do, Rowan?" He hesitated before answering. "Real estate mostly, family business." "Must be interesting," she offered. "Rarely," he admitted with a small smile. "What about you?" "I work at Maggie's Diner 5 days a week, and at Quick Stop on weekends," she said, twirling pasta around her fork. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Most of them, anyway." Rowan looked around her apartment, taking in the mismatched furniture and the small touches that made it a home. Hand-sewn curtains, carefully tended plants, books stacked on every surface. "You've made this place yours," he observed. Leah felt her cheeks warm. "It's not much—" "No," he interrupted gently. "I mean that as a compliment. Most people just exist in spaces. You've created something here." There was something in his eyes when he said it, a kind of longing that caught Leah off guard. This man, who clearly had more than she ever would, seemed almost envious of her tiny apartment. "What about your place?" she asked. Rowan's expression closed slightly. "It's larger than I need." "Do you live alone? Besides Milo, I mean." "Yes," he said. "Just us. What about you? Has it always been just you here?" Leah nodded. "Since my divorce 5 years ago. Tom wanted bigger things, bigger house, bigger career, bigger life. I was happy with what we had." His loss, Rowan said quietly, meeting her eyes. The conversation flowed more easily after that. They talked about books, discovering they both loved mysteries, and movies and places they'd traveled. Rowan spoke of Europe in a way that told Leah he'd been there many times, while she shared stories of her one big trip to the Grand Canyon after high school. As they finished dinner, Milo moved from the couch to settle between their feet, under the table, his tail thumping against the floor whenever either of them looked his way. "He's playing matchmaker," Leah joked, then immediately regretted it. Who was she to suggest anything romantic between them? But Rowan just smiled. Smart dog. Before leaving, Rowan noticed the leaky faucet in her kitchen. Without being asked, he rolled up his sleeves and fixed it with tools from under her sink. "My grandfather was a plumber," he explained when he caught her surprised look. "He taught me a few things before he died." As he gathered his jacket and Milo's leash, Leah walked them to the door. "Thank you for dinner. And the faucet." "Thank you for the company," Rowan replied. He hesitated, then added, "Would it be okay if we came by again? Maybe Saturday? We could take Milo to the park." Leah felt a flutter in her chest. "I'd like that." After they left, Leah sat on her couch, hugging Milo's blanket to her chest. There was something about Rowan that intrigued her, a sadness behind his eyes, a gentleness in how he spoke, and the way he looked at her, like he was seeing something valuable that others had missed. Saturday arrived with perfect fall weather, crisp air and golden sunlight filtering through trees just beginning to change color. Rowan picked up Leah in his car, which she noted was nice but not flashy. Milo sat in the back seat, his head hanging out the window, ears flapping in the breeze. At the park, they walked side by side, while Milo explored every bush and tree. Rowan bought them hot chocolates from a vendor, and they sat on a bench watching children play on a nearby playground. "Did you ever want kids?" Rowan asked, his eyes on a little girl being pushed on a swing by her father. "Once," Leah admitted. "Tom and I tried for a while, but it didn't happen. After the divorce, I figured it wasn't in the cards for me." She took a sip of her hot chocolate. "What about you?" "I never thought I'd be good at it," he said quietly. "My own father was distant, always working. I'm afraid I'd be the same." "I don't think so," Leah said before she could stop herself. "I've seen how you are with Milo, patient, kind. Those are good qualities in a father." Rowan turned to look at her, something vulnerable in his expression. "You see the best in people, don't you?" "I try to. The world seems better that way." They continued their walk, and Leah found herself sharing stories about her childhood in a small town upstate, about her dream of opening a poetry cafe someday, about the night classes she took in literature at the community college. "Poetry cafe?" Rowan asked, intrigued. Leah laughed softly. "Silly dream, I know, but I always imagined a little place with mismatched armchairs and local artwork on the walls. People could come to read or listen to poetry, drink good coffee, feel connected." "It's not silly at all," Rowan said seriously. "Why haven't you done it?" "Money," she replied simply. "Dreams cost more than I make at the diner." The days turned into weeks, and Rowan became a regular fixture in Leah's life. He'd bring Milo by every few days, always with some excuse. Dinner, a book he thought she'd like, a movie he wanted to watch with her. Soon they settled into a comfortable routine. Saturday afternoons were for walks in the park. Wednesday evenings were for takeout and movies on her small TV. Rowan fixed things around her apartment, the loose cabinet door, the window that wouldn't close properly, the creaky stair outside her door. He never made her feel like a charity case. He simply saw what needed doing and did it. What surprised Leah most was how Rowan seemed to relax more with each visit. The guarded look in his eyes slowly gave way to genuine warmth. He laughed more freely, spoke more openly. One Wednesday night, after they'd finished watching an old Humphrey Bogart movie, they sat on her couch with Milo stretched out across both their laps. "Do you ever wish you were someone else?" Leah asked, the question arising from something in the film. Rowan was quiet for so long that she thought he might not answer. Finally he said, "Only when I'm not with you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Leah felt her heart skip a beat. "What does that mean?" she asked softly. "It means," he said, turning to face her, "that for the first time in years I feel like myself when I'm here. Not what people expect me to be, just me. Without overthinking it, Leah leaned forward and kissed him. It was gentle, hesitant, a question more than a statement. To her relief, Rowan answered by drawing her closer, his hand warm against her cheek. When they broke apart, Milo was looking up at them with what Leah could have sworn was a doggy smile. "Your matchmaking worked, buddy," Rowan told him, scratching under his chin. As October turned to November, their relationship deepened. Rowan began staying later, sometimes falling asleep on her couch with Milo curled at his feet. Leah found herself looking forward to his visits with an intensity that sometimes scared her. She was falling for him, this kind, mysterious man who spoke little of his work or his past. One chilly Saturday, Rowan suggested they take Milo to a different park, one on the other side of town, with a pond where ducks gathered. As they walked along the path, Leah noticed people staring at them. At first, she thought it was because of Milo, who was wearing the ridiculous orange sweater she'd knitted for him. But then she realized they were looking at Rowan. A woman with a stroller stopped suddenly when she saw them, her eyes widening. She pulled out her phone and quickly snapped a photo before hurrying away. "Do you know her?" Leah asked, confused. "No," Rowan said, his expression darkening. "Let's go this way." He led her down a less crowded path, but the strange encounters continued. Two businessmen nodded deferentially as they passed. A teenager pointed and whispered to his friend. "Rowan, what's going on?" Leah finally asked. "Why is everyone looking at you like that?" Before he could answer, a man in a suit approached them, hand extended. "Mr. Hartwell, I didn't expect to see you here. I've been trying to reach you about the Riverside project." "Not now, Peterson," Rowan said firmly, not taking the man's hand. "I'm not working today." The man looked embarrassed, glancing between Rowan and Leah. "Of course, sir. My apologies for interrupting your outing." As the man walked away, Leah stood frozen in place. "Hartwell," she repeated, "as in Hartwell Development? The company that owns half the city?" Rowan's face was grim. "Leah, I can explain. You're Rowan Hartwell, the billionaire." The pieces were falling into place. His expensive watch, his vague answers about work, the way he never invited her to his home. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because this is exactly what I was afraid would happen," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "The moment people know my name, everything changes. They don't see me anymore. They see the money, the company, the headlines." "And what did you think would happen when I found out?" Leah demanded, hurt spreading through her chest. "Did you think I wouldn't notice eventually?" "I wanted to tell you," Rowan insisted. I liked being just Rowan with you. Not Rowan Hartwell, CEO, not the man whose family name is on buildings across the city." Leah felt tears stinging her eyes. "So this whole time, you've been what? Slumming it with the diner waitress? Getting a taste of how the other half lives?" "That's not fair," Rowan said, reaching for her hand, which she pulled away. "What we have is real, more real than anything in my life." A group of people had gathered nearby, phones out, watching their argument with obvious interest. Leah suddenly felt exposed, humiliated. "I need to go home," she said, her voice breaking. "Alone. Leah, please. I need time to think," she insisted, backing away. "Just give me some space." She turned and walked quickly toward the park exit, wiping away tears with the back of her hand. Behind her, she heard Milo whining, could feel Rowan watching her go. Her heart felt like it was being torn in two, but she kept walking. By the time she reached her apartment, her phone was buzzing with messages from friends and co-workers. The photo of her and Rowan had already gone viral. "Hartwell heirs secret." "Girlfriend," the captions read. Her simple life, her private relationship, suddenly splashed across social media for strangers to dissect and judge. Leah sank onto her couch, hugging Milo's blanket to her chest. She couldn't stop the tears now. Not because Rowan was rich, she didn't care about that, but because he hadn't trusted her enough to tell her the truth. Because now she had to question everything. Did he really care for her, or was she just a novelty to him? A simple girl who didn't know his name or his net worth. As night fell, she ignored the knocking at her door. She wasn't ready to face him, yet wasn't ready to admit that despite the lie of omission, Despite the hurt, she still missed him. Missed them. Rowan and Milo, who had somehow become her family when she wasn't looking. On her coffee table, her phone lit up with another message. This one from an unknown number, with a photo attached. It was Milo, lying by a massive fireplace, in what must be Rowan's home, looking sad and lost. The message read, "He misses you." "So do I. Please let me explain." Leah stared at the message for a long time, her finger hovering over the reply button. Everything had changed, and she didn't know if they could find their way back to what they had. But the ache in her chest told her one thing for certain. She wanted to try. 3 days passed without Leah responding to Rowan's message. She went to work, came home, and tried to ignore the emptiness of her apartment without Milo's panting and Rowan's quiet laughter. Each time she picked up her phone to reply, doubt stopped her. What future could they possibly have? She was a waitress with 2 jobs and a mountain of student debt. He was one of the richest men in the city. On the 4th day, as Leah was finishing her shift at Maggie's diner, her co-worker Jen slid a newspaper across the counter. "You might want to see this," Jen said, tapping on a photo. There on the society page was a picture of Rowan, dressed in an expensive suit, standing next to a stunning blonde woman at some charity event. The caption read, "Rowan Hartwell and socialite Victoria Pierce at the Children's Hospital Gala." Leah felt her stomach drop. "When was this taken?" "Last night," Jen replied, watching her carefully. "You okay, honey?" "I'm fine," Leah said automatically, though she felt anything but fine. "I need to go." She walked home in the cold November, the newspaper tucked under her arm. She'd been foolish to think someone like Rowan would wait around for her. Of course he had moved on, back to his real life with people from his world. When she reached her apartment building, she stopped short. Parked at the curb was Rowan's car, and sitting on her front steps, bundled in a coat too thin for the weather, was Rowan himself. Milo lay at his feet, wearing the orange sweater she had knitted. Rowan stood when he saw her, his expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "You didn't answer my texts." Leah held up the newspaper. "Looks like you've been busy." Confusion crossed his face, then understanding when he saw the photo. "That's not what it looks like." "It never is," Leah said, moving past him toward her door. "Victoria is my cousin's wife," Rowan explained, following her. "The hospital gala is a family obligation. I've attended it every year since my parents died." Leah paused, key in the lock. "Your parents died?" 7 years ago. Boating accident." His voice was flat, rehearsed, as if he'd said the words many times, but they still hurt. "That's when I got Milo, from a shelter. He was the only one who didn't care about the Hartwell name." Leah felt her anger softening despite herself. She opened the door, hesitated, then stepped aside. "You should come in. It's cold out here." Relief washed over Rowan's face as he and Milo followed her inside. Her apartment felt smaller with him standing in it now, knowing who he really was. She could imagine how it must look to him, shabby and cramped compared to wherever he lived. "Should have told you sooner," Rowan said quietly, watching as Milo went straight to his blanket on the couch. "I know that, but I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Leah asked, hanging up her coat. "That you'd look at me differently, that what we had would change." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize when he was nervous. "When my parents died, I inherited everything, the company, the properties, the fortune, and suddenly no one saw me anymore. They saw dollar signs. Every relationship became a transaction. So you lied to me?" Leah crossed her arms, protecting herself. "I never lied about who I am," Rowan insisted. "Just what I do. My name, my family, everything I've shared with you about myself, my feelings, my thoughts, what I care about, that was all real." Leah sank onto the couch next to Milo, who immediately put his head in her lap. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Rowan. Or even if that's your real name." "It is." He sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Rowan James Hartwell, 40 years old, terrible at relationships, scared of thunderstorms but would never admit it, in love with a woman who found my dog and brought him back to life when I thought he was gone forever." Leah's head snapped up. "In love?" Rowan's eyes met hers, steady and sure. Yes, in love. With you, Leah. Not because you didn't know who I was, but because you saw who I am anyway. The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache. She wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly it hurt. How can this work? She asked, gesturing around. Her apartment. Look at this place, look at me. I don't belong in your world, Rowan. Then I'll belong in yours, he said simply. Because the truth is, I've been happier in this apartment, with you and Milo, than I've been in my world for years. Leah felt tears threatening. It's not that simple. Why not? Rowan moved closer, taking her hand. Tell me why it can't be that simple. Because people will talk. Because your business associates will think I'm after your money. Because someday, you might resent coming home to this when you could have so much more. Rowan shook his head firmly. I don't care what people say. As for my business associates, they work for me, not the other way around. And Leah, he squeezed her hand. This is more than I've ever had, don't you understand? You've given me a home, not a house, a home. Milo whined softly, looking between them as if understanding the importance of this moment. I need you to see something, Rowan said suddenly. Will you come with me, both of you? He looked at Milo. Curiosity won out over caution. Where? My house. I want you to see how I live. Then maybe you'll understand. The drive took them to the wealthiest part of the city, where mansions sat behind high walls and security gates. Rowan pulled up to an imposing gate, pressed a button, and drove through when it opened. Leah gasped despite herself. The house was a sprawling stone mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie. Perfectly manicured gardens surrounded it, and lights illuminated the facade against the darkening evening sky. This is where you live, she whispered. This is where I stay, Rowan corrected, parking in front of the massive front door. Come inside. Milo bounded ahead of them, clearly happy to be home but looking back to make sure Leah was following. The interior was just as impressive as the exterior. High ceilings, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than Leah would make in a lifetime. But as Rowan led her through the house, she noticed something odd. Despite its grandeur, the house felt empty, impersonal, like a museum rather than a home. They passed formal dining rooms and sitting areas that looked barely used. When they reached what must be Rowan's bedroom suite, she understood why. This was the only space that felt lived in, books piled on the nightstand, a sweatshirt thrown over a chair, Milo's bed near the fireplace. The rest of the house belonged to my parents, Rowan explained, watching her take it all in. I never changed anything, never made it mine. Why not? He shrugged. It never felt right. After they died, I just existed here. Leah's heart squeezed at the loneliness that statement revealed. She thought of her own small apartment, cramped but full of her personality, her touches, her life. Now do you understand? Rowan asked quietly. You thought I was slumming it with you? Leah, those nights on your couch with you and Milo were the first time I've felt at home since my parents died. She turned to face him, really seeing him now. Not Rowan Hartwell, the billionaire, but just Rowan, a man who had everything and nothing at the same time. I'm sorry, she said softly. For what? For assuming the worst. For thinking this, she gestured around the massive bedroom, would matter more to you than what we had. Rowan moved closer, taking both her hands in his. I don't want to lose you. Leah, these past few days without you. He shook his head. I can't go back to that emptiness. You don't have to, she whispered, finally allowing herself to believe in them again. Rowan's kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with the relief of finding something precious that had almost been lost. When they broke apart, Milo was watching. Them, tail wagging furiously. I think he approves, Leah laughed softly. Smart dog, Rowan replied, echoing his words from that first dinner at her apartment. Over the next few weeks, Leah and Rowan carefully rebuilt what had been damaged by his secret. It wasn't easy. The press followed them everywhere once the story broke about Rowan Hartwell's ordinary girlfriend. Tabloids speculated about Leah's real motives, and business associates made thinly veiled comments questioning her suitability. But Rowan remained steadfast. He held her hand proudly at company events, corrected anyone who suggested she wasn't good enough, and spent most nights at her apartment rather than his mansion. For Thanksgiving, they decided to host dinner at Leah's place, inviting her closest friends and a few of Rowan's most loyal employees. Leah worried about fitting everyone into her small space, but Rowan insisted. "Your apartment feels more like home than my house ever has," he said, as they prepared the turkey together, Milo watching hopefully for dropped scraps. The dinner was chaotic and wonderful. Too many people crammed around borrowed folding tables, mismatched plates, and laughter that filled every corner of the small apartment. James, Rowan's head of security who had become a friend, raised a toast. "To finding family in unexpected places," he said, lifting his glass. Later that night, after everyone had gone and they were cleaning up, Rowan seemed unusually quiet. "What's wrong?" Leah asked, putting away the last of the leftovers. "Nothing's wrong," he assured her. "I've just been thinking." "About what?" Rowan leaned against the counter, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "About that poetry cafe you talked about, the dream you had." Leah smiled, remembering. "What about it?" "I think you should do it," she laughed. "Maybe someday when I win the lottery. Or now," Rowan said seriously. "I found a building downtown, small, but with character. It's for sale." Leah stopped what she was doing, turning to face him. "Rowan, I can't afford a building downtown." "I can," he said simply. "No." She shook her head firmly. "I won't take your money like that." "It wouldn't be taking," Rowan argued gently. "It would be investing, in your dream, in our future." "Our future," Leah repeated, her heart skipping. Rowan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Leah's breath caught in her throat. "I had a whole speech planned," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "About how you found Milo when he was lost, and somehow found me too. About how you made a home in a world that always felt cold to me. But, standing here in this kitchen where we've shared so many meals, I just want to ask, Leah Monroe, will you marry me?" Tears filled Leah's eyes. "Are you sure? Your board of directors, your family name—" "None of that matters," Rowan interrupted. "You do. We do, Milo and you and me, that's what matters." As if hearing his name, Milo padded into the kitchen, looking expectantly between them. Leah laughed through her tears. "I think he's waiting for an answer too." She took a deep breath, looking at Rowan, at the love and hope in his eyes, and knew her answer. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I'll marry you." Rowan slipped the ring onto her finger, then lifted her into his arms, spinning her around the small kitchen while Milo barked excitedly. As Rowan set her down, Leah looked around her tiny apartment, the chipped paint, the mismatched furniture, the worn couch where they had fallen in love. Soon their lives would change. She might move into his house, or they might find a new place together. She might open that poetry cafe after all. But one thing she knew for certain: wherever they went, whatever they did, it would be home as long as they were together. That night, as they lay in bed with Milo snoring softly at their feet, Leah turned to Rowan. "I never asked. What made you come to my door that first day? You could have sent someone to get Milo." Rowan was quiet for a moment, thinking back. "I wanted to see who had found him, to thank them myself. But then what? Then I saw you kneel and whisper to him, saw how he ran to you with such joy, and something in me unraveled." He stroked her cheek gently. "Because you didn't know who he belonged to, but you loved him like I would have." "And now?" Leah asked softly. Rowan smiled, pulling her closer. "Now I know that some things get lost, so better things can be found." Outside, snow began to fall, covering the city in quiet white. Inside, in a small apartment in the old part of town, a man, a woman, and a dog slept peacefully, having found in each other what money could never buy: a family, built on nothing more than love and second chances. Christmas arrived in a flurry of activity. Leah had never experienced a holiday quite like this one, her small apartment transformed by a 7-foot tree that Rowan had somehow managed to fit in her living room, presents spilling out from underneath. It, and the constant comings and goings of delivery people bringing everything from gourmet food baskets to designer clothing. "Oh, you have to stop," she told Rowan one evening as he arrived with yet another beautifully wrapped package. "My closet can't hold anything else, and neither can this apartment." Rowan just smiled, setting the package under the tree. "I've missed too many Christmases with someone I love. Let me enjoy this one." It was hard to argue with that. Since their engagement 3 weeks ago, Rowan had thrown himself into holiday preparations with childlike enthusiasm. He decorated her apartment with twinkling lights, hung mistletoe in every doorway, and insisted on baking Christmas cookies despite having no baking experience whatsoever. "You're like a kid," Leah laughed one night as they sat surrounded by badly frosted cookies, flour dusting Rowan's expensive sweater and icing in his hair. "I never really celebrated as an adult," he admitted. "The Hartwell family Christmas was always formal dinners and obligatory charity events. After my parents died, I stopped celebrating altogether." Leah's heart ached at the thought. She reached over and squeezed his hand, leaving a smudge of green frosting on his wrist. "Well, this year we're making up for lost time." And they were. Together with Milo, who now sported a ridiculous reindeer collar that jingled when he walked, they created new traditions. They watched old Christmas movies under blankets on her couch. They took evening walks to see the neighborhood lights. They drank hot chocolate with too many marshmallows. The news of their engagement had spread quickly. The business world was buzzing with speculation about the Hartwell heir marrying a waitress, and Leah had endured more than a few uncomfortable encounters with Rowan's social circle. But with each snide comment or doubtful look, Rowan's support never wavered. "They'll learn to love you as I do," he assured her, "or they'll learn to live without us in their lives." On Christmas Eve, they decided to host a small gathering at Leah's apartment. Her friends from the diner came, as did James and a few other employees from Hartwell Development, who had welcomed Leah warmly. Even Dr. Chen, who had treated Milo, when Leah first found him, stopped by with his wife. "I've never seen this place so full," Jen from the diner commented, looking around at the crowded apartment. "Full of good people," Leah replied, watching as Rowan poured drinks and chatted easily with her co-workers, no trace of the billionaire businessman in his manner. Later that night, after everyone had gone and they sat alone in the glow of the Christmas tree lights, Rowan handed Leah a small envelope. "One more gift," he said, "for tomorrow really, but I can't wait." Curious, Leah opened it and pulled out a single key. "What's this for?" she asked. "Your poetry cafe," Rowan answered, simply. "The building on Maple Street, the one with the big windows and brick walls. It's yours." Leah stared at him, speechless. "Before you say no," Rowan continued quickly, "it's not just a gift. It's an investment in our future, a place for you to build your dream, on your terms. I'll be a silent partner if that's what you want, or just the guy who fixes the plumbing when it breaks." Tears filled Leah's eyes, not because of the expense, though she knew the building must have cost a fortune, but because of what it represented. Rowan believed in her dream enough to make it real. "You can't just buy me a building," she managed to say. "I didn't buy it. For you," Rowan corrected gently. "I bought it for us, for our future, for the life we're building together." Leah clutched the key in her palm, feeling its weight, the weight of possibility, of dreams becoming reality. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll make it yours," Rowan urged. "Fill it with poetry and mismatched chairs and local art, just like you described. Make it a home for words and people who need them." "Our home," Leah whispered. "A place for both of us." Rowan's smile was warm as he pulled her close. "Home is wherever you are, but yes, our place." As they kissed under the twinkling lights, Milo sprawled contentedly at their feet. Leah thought about how much her life had changed since that rainy night when she'd found a scared, injured dog in an alley. From loneliness to love, from struggle to possibility, all because she had opened her door and her heart to an unexpected guest. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, with sunlight streaming through the windows and reflecting off the fresh snow outside. Leah woke to find Rowan already up, sitting on the floor next to Milo, both of them watching her with matching expressions of impatience. "Finally," Rowan said with a grin, "we've been waiting forever." "It's only 7:30, Leah groaned, but she couldn't help smiling at their enthusiasm. They opened presents with childlike joy, Milo tearing through the wrapping paper of his gifts with gleeful abandon, Rowan insisting that Leah open hers first. She had worried about what to get a man who could buy anything he wanted, but the journal she'd found at a used bookstore, filled with blank pages and bound in soft leather, seemed to touch him deeply. "For your thoughts," she explained as he ran his fingers over the cover, "all the ones you keep to yourself." "This is perfect," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." After breakfast, they bundled up and took Milo for a walk through the snow-covered neighborhood. As they passed the park where they often walked, Rowan suddenly stopped. "I want to show you something," he said, tugging her hand gently. "A Christmas surprise." Curious, Leah followed him down a path they rarely took, to a quiet corner of the park where an old bench sat beneath a large oak tree. But today the bench looked different, newer, with a small bronze plaque attached to its back. As they got closer, Leah could read the words engraved on the plaque. "Where Milo brought us." Together, Rowan and Leah. "When did you do this?" she asked, touching the plaque with gloved fingers. "Last week," Rowan admitted. "I wanted to mark the place where my life really changed, where I realized I'd found something more valuable than anything I owned." Leah sat on the bench, overwhelmed by the gesture. "It's beautiful." Rowan sat beside her, Milo settling at their feet. "I have something else to ask you," he said, suddenly looking nervous. "Something important. More important than a marriage proposal," Leah teased. "Related to it, actually." He took a deep breath. "I want us to live together, properly, not just me staying over most nights. And I've been thinking about where." Leah nodded, having wondered the same thing. Her apartment was too small for three of them long-term, but she couldn't imagine living in Rowan's cold, formal mansion either. "I want to sell the estate," Rowan continued, surprising her. "It was never my home, just a place I inherited. I want us to find a new place together, something that can be ours from the beginning." "Are you sure?" Leah asked, knowing how significant this decision was. "That house has been in your family for generations, and it can go to someone else's family now," Rowan said firmly. "I don't need those walls or that history. I need you and Milo in a place that feels like us." The certainty in his voice brought tears to Leah's eyes. "I'd like that," she said softly. "A fresh start for all of us." As winter melted into spring, their lives transformed rapidly. Leah quit her jobs at the diner and convenience store to focus on renovating the poetry cafe, which they decided to name Milo's Corner, in honor of the dog who had brought them together. The building on Maple Street, a former bookstore with high ceilings and exposed brick walls, slowly took shape under her vision, with Rowan helping with the heavy lifting, but letting Leah make the creative decisions. They found a house, too, not as grand as Rowan's mansion, but spacious and warm, with a large yard for Milo and a sunroom where Leah could read. It was close enough to the cafe that she could walk to work, and had an office where Rowan could work from home when he wanted. So they moved in together in April, blending their belongings, his expensive furniture looking surprisingly at home next to her mismatched treasures. The news of Rowan Hartwell selling his family estate made headlines, as did his announcement that he was scaling back his role at Hartwell Development to focus on personal projects. The business world was shocked, but those closest to Rowan saw how the weight seemed to lift from his shoulders with each change. "You look happy," James commented one day as he helped them move boxes into the new house. "I am," Rowan replied simply, watching as Leah directed the placement of a bookshelf in the living room, Milo supervising from his new bed by the fireplace. The grand opening of Milo's Corner was set for a warm Saturday in May. Leah had been working around the clock to get everything perfect, arranging the mismatched armchairs and sofas she'd collected from thrift stores, hanging local artwork on the walls, stocking the small kitchen with coffee beans and pastries from local bakeries. On the morning of the opening, she stood in the middle of the empty cafe taking it all in, the poetry books lining the shelves, the small stage for readings, the warm lighting that made everything glow. It was exactly as she had imagined it all those years ago, a dream, made real. "Nervous?" Rowan asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "A little," she admitted. "What if no one comes?" "They'll come," he assured her. "And even if they don't, we'll still have built something beautiful." Milo, wearing a special bandana for the occasion, wagged his tail in agreement. As it turned out, Leah needn't have worried. By noon, the cafe was packed with people, her friends from the diner, Rowan's colleagues, neighbors from their new home, and curious locals who had read about the opening in the community paper. The line for coffee stretched out the door, and every seat was filled with people reading, talking, or simply enjoying the atmosphere. In the afternoon, they held their first poetry reading, an open mic where anyone could share their work. To Leah's surprise, Rowan was the first to sign up. "You wrote a poem," she whispered as he made his way to the small stage. "For you," he replied with a wink. He stood at the microphone, looking more nervous than she had ever seen him, even when closing million-dollar deals. He cleared his throat and began to read from a piece of paper he pulled from his pocket. "I was lost before I found you," he read, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Living in a mansion built of empty rooms, you lived in a home built of warmth and welcome, and showed me the difference." The cafe fell silent as he continued, his words simple but heartfelt. A love letter to the woman who had changed his life, to the dog who had brought them together, to the home they had built. In each other's hearts. By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. When he returned to their table, Leah threw her arms around him. "That was beautiful." "I meant every word," he said, holding her close. As the day wound down, and the last customers reluctantly left promising to return, Leah, Rowan and Milo sat together in the empty cafe. The evening light streamed through the big windows, casting a golden glow over everything. "So," Rowan said, pouring them each a glass of champagne, "was it everything you hoped for?" Leah looked around at the space they had created, then at the man and dog beside her, her family built from chance and kindness and love. "It's more," she said softly. "So much more than I ever dreamed possible." Rowan raised his glass. "To finding what matters. To loving what was yours," Leah added, "and you loving what was mine." "And to Milo," they said together, "who knew all, along where we belonged." Outside, the city bustled on, unaware of the small miracle that had happened within these walls, how a lost dog, a kind woman, and a lonely man had found in each other the home they had each been searching for all along. Not in grand mansions or perfect plans, but in the simple, profound act of seeing each other, truly and completely, and choosing to stay. As night fell, they locked up the cafe and walked home together, Rowan's hand in Leah's, Milo trotting happily beside them. The path ahead was theirs to create, step by step, day by day, together. And that, Leah thought as she looked up at the stars appearing in the evening sky, was the greatest gift of all. Not the cafe or the house or the ring on her finger, but the knowledge that sometimes the most valuable things come to us, not when we're searching for them, but when we open our doors to the unexpected visitors who arrive in our lives, wet and shivering and in need of shelter. Sometimes they change everything, and sometimes, if we're very lucky, they lead us home. The end.